Welcome back.
Good to be back.
Hi, I'm LadyJenevia, and on my channel I talk about entertainment media. Today's video is a review of Gen V Season 2. I have seen the whole season, but any and every major plot development is on the list of do not reveals, so more or less all of my feedback is going to be stated in the broadest terms possible. To start things off, my review pull quote is, "The most exceptional quality of Gen V Season 2 is its ability to deeply care for the emotional well-being of its lead characters and take the necessary time to let each performer shine in portraying their profound grief." I will go through my overall positive feedback first, then I will go through some of the characters with that positive feedback, then we will go through some broad negative feedback, and there's really only one or two negative bits anyway, so that shouldn't take long, and then we will close things off with some final thoughts about this show, its future, and the broader universe that this takes place in. If you are watching this video, I'm assuming you already watched The Boys, as well as Gen V Season 1, so you will presumably know this, but just in case you didn't, actor Chance Perdomo passed away after Season 1 was released, so for Gen V Season 2 they had to pause and rework their plans for what that story was going to be. Out of respect, his character Andre was not recast. The character is now dead on the show, and there was a lot of work put into that part of the story. Everyone that was close to this character, everyone that felt impacted in a meaningful way by knowing him, feels grief and is shown to express that in some way, shape, or form in Season 2. Whether that's trying to push the emotions down, trying to find answers about what happened to him, or even something as straightforward as saying out loud what he meant to them while holding back tears in their eyes, whatever that grief looks like, viewers will see that for these lead performers. In particular, the work that Sean Patrick Thomas, who plays Polarity, Andre's father, does in this season is so beautifully performed. He was more of a secondary character in Season 1 because first and foremost the focus was placed on those younger students who attend Godolphin University, or if not attend the school, they were being held captive beneath the school. It's not so much that he's there to replace Andre on the show, because doing so would be impossible. They are different characters who have very different relationships and connections to the various main players in this ensemble. But with this shared loss, Polarity and the main characters now have the same enemy, a common interest or goal. So that also means that we get to see new pairings, not romantic ones per se, but if Polarity shares any extended amount of time with one of those younger students, we are now able to see new scene partners working together, and somehow it all makes perfect sense. Last season, I never would have thought about Polarity interacting much with any of those characters in this friendship group, except for Andre, of course. But now, it just really works in a way that I would not have thought of while I was watching Season 1 for the first time. The overall story for Season 2 works in a sort of parallel manner to what we've gotten to watch on The Boys, where there was that exploration of digging into the history of Vought and learning hidden secrets about that company. Namely, the fact that Vought's origins were as a pharmaceutical company, a fascist one to be more specific. For Gen V Season 2, we see something similar, but it's different in the sense that we are digging more into the history and origins of Godolphin University. While watching Gen V Season 2, I was thinking about the process of adaptation. For anyone who doesn't already know this, I have an ongoing series on my channel where I read the book source material of an upcoming adaptation, and then when that film comes out, I review it, not only as a film on its own merits, but also taking into consideration the various choices that were made and how to go about adapting that original source material and making it work in a different medium than it was originally published in. I thought about Mickey 7, the book, and one of the primary alterations made to that source material in creating the film adaptation, Mickey 17. Mickey 7 included a whole lot of details of world building in that sort of fantastical science fiction way, but a lot of those detours the book took from the primary narrative to tell you about all of these other planets that Mickey knows about because he's a historian, or at least that's what he was before. The film did not include those detours, and that made sense to me because doing so would cost a lot more money from a production budget. It would also balloon the film's runtime, and a general audience who hasn't read the book might feel as though the film's pacing is dragging if you were to include all of that other stuff. World building in a book could potentially come across like exposition dumping when that's in a film. And this came to mind specifically because Gen V is a prime example of what the television medium can do at its best, especially in this type of genre storytelling. There's a lot of exceptionally done character work, development, arcs, all of the things you need to emotionally invest in your main ensemble of leads, but because you have 8 episodes to tell this story instead of 2 isolated hours, Gen V Season 2 neatly balances the inclusion of this world building of presenting these characters the chance to dig into the secrets and origins of Godolphin University. Although there were some revelations, or maybe one in particular, that I did figure out before it was fully revealed on the show, that's not necessarily a negative point of feedback. It was a development in the story that made perfect sense with all that you are being shown in the lead up to that reveal. Context clues are a thing. Still, overall, it's fun to get to have the lore and world building in addition to the character material, because it makes this fictional universe feel more vivid by way of having those details. Now, we already talked about polarity, but now we can talk about some of the other characters. Marie, she is still searching for answers to questions that she had in season 1. Although it's an ensemble show, she definitely continues to be framed as the top billed star of the narrative. And I really like the way they balance her being set up to be this all-powerful character with these abilities that she has, but also having a lot of dimension as a character. There are difficult decisions she has to make, and it's not always obvious what the correct decision is. But ultimately, there's never any doubt that she is trying her best, and that's what makes her endearing to the audience. There's a big speech she gives that Jaz Sinclair acts the hell out of this season, of being able to speak important truths for this character. It was the perfect embodiment of what Gen V's strengths are in its own right. There's so much careful consideration for all of these main characters, their emotions, pain, and traumas. Now, Emma is probably one of my favorite characters. Don't get me wrong, all of the main characters are done well, and I don't fault anyone for favoring any one of those a bit extra. But for me, I just love when Emma gets those moments to be funny, because it's such a distinct quality to her character and of Lizze Broadway as a performer. She makes it come across like it's so natural and effortless. Now, I won't give away specifics because I'm not allowed to, but if I'm speaking broadly, one example of her comedic ability, I will describe it with 2 words: sound effects. If you've seen the season 2 premiere of that first chunk of the season being released, you will see what I'm talking circles around right now. And I'm not taking any credit away from Lizzie's ability to play the more serious, emotionally dramatic moments for Emma and her grief in season 2, but I'm simply putting extra flowers on her comedic delivery because it's something she does exceptionally well that you don't get to see as much of from the other characters in this ensemble. Jordan, both performers, are able to play an array of things that happen for this character this season. Personal relationships, the grief and guilt from losing their friend. Remember that Jordan was the closest to Andre out of all of those students that were taken captive at the end of season 1. Jordan and Andre were friends when season 1 began, so there was definitely a lot more history there. And Jordan also has a precarious position in the socio-political climate of this universe. The broader universe here, whether it's The Boys or Gen V, these are stories that are trying to address various socio-political issues and conflicts that are particularly relevant to the viewers who exist in roughly the same geographical location as these stories take place in. Now, I can't go into specifics because of spoilers, but that type of socio-political material is something that is part of Jordan's story. So if anything, now that I think about this, I feel like Jordan has the most variety in material that they're playing in their season 2 story, and it's just very well done on all counts. Kate and Sam, when we look at the season 1 finale, they really felt like they had this 180. Is it called a heel turn? That sounds more like a dance term to me, but they went down this more villainous trajectory, and for anyone that might have negative emotions and animosity towards those characters, I am not going to tell you whether or not you should be okay with them in watching season 2 and emotionally reinvest in them, but I will, however, pay my compliments to how the show takes the necessary time to really let those characters sit in the guilt of what they've done. I feel like a lot of their season 2 material involves spoilers though, so I will simply say that they get to experience just as much introspection as the main main characters in this friendship group who did not do a villain turn in the season 1 finale. They don't do any weirdly rushed reconciliations as if nothing happened and you're trying to force those people back into the same group as they were in season 1. And one other character I will mention in this section, Dean Cypher, played by Hamish Linklater. He is a genuinely terrifying villain. Now, if you've seen Midnight Mass, I don't think you will be surprised that Hamish Linklater's performance is exceptionally delivered with the dramatic gravitas that this character requires. Cypher? That's a villain through and through. If Hamish Linklater wants you to be scared by his performance, you will be scared. That's it. Overall, the majority of my feedback is positive, and that was a relief when I actually sat down to watch this because I really wasn't sure how I would feel in going back into this universe. I am finding that The Boys as an expanded universe has hit a point where I can feel the beginnings of franchise fatigue creeping in. I'm relieved that the next season of The Boys is the last one, and more or less the only thing I care about on that show at this point is Kimiko anyways. If you saw my interview with Karen Fukuhara, you will already know that that's my stance. And I was finally able to show her my cat Kimiko, whom I named after her. But there's so much care and emotional awareness of taking care of this main ensemble of characters on Gen V that simply does not exist on The Boys. But when I look back on how I felt about The Boys as a story and how it was stylistically put together when it first premiered, it felt very fresh and different to the onslaught of superhero media that had to be more sanitized because of how corporate the machines were behind those projects and the need to make those viewable to children. But now we are 6 years on, and I find that the gross out bits of body humor in this universe are feeling juvenile, irritating, and obnoxious. Gen V Season 2 excels in being emotionally earnest, but any time that's interrupted by disgusting frat boy humor, I can feel this sense of revulsion that I didn't have before. So I don't know if that's just the result of my taste changing. Maybe it's the impact of witnessing geopolitical horrors that make it to where I feel differently about the themes of the stories that are told in this universe. Maybe it's the result of many different things. And the only other negative point of feedback was that Ethan Slater was horrendously miscast for the part of Thomas Godolkin. There wasn't a single moment of him being convincing in playing the dramatic gravitas required for that character. There are not any specifics I could go into in this review because more or less everything involving the character involves plot spoilers that I am not permitted to reveal. But considering how well everyone else I listed performed their characters and how well written their character journeys were for this season, it just made his performance stand out even more for how bad it was in comparison. Now, maybe he could be convincing in some other role for some other job, but this one simply had nothing to offer. Being that The Boys Season 5 is going to be the finale, I don't know how much or how little the events of that story would impact a vision for Gen V moving forward, but at this extremely early stage, I would say that if you want to do another season of Gen V after The Boys Season 5, you should probably make it the final season. And my reasoning for that is that I think you should end the show while it's still exceptional. Almost every streaming series nowadays feels like it's either going on for too long, where you are far past the point of it being exceptional enough to keep being renewed for more seasons, or it gets canceled really early before it's had any real chance to find its audience and tell a complete story. So for Gen V, we have a season 2 that is 95% excellent, by my judgment anyway. So why not just have 3 exceptional seasons that fans can keep coming back to and enjoy rewatching? Or do you really want to risk dragging it past its prime to where you ruin things in the end and then no one wants to come back and rewatch it? That's my opinion for now. Of course, it's subject to change with new information. Maybe I will feel differently about the future of Gen V after I watch The Boys Season 5. But as for Gen V Season 2, if you have any emotional investment in Marie, Emma, Jordan, Kate, Sam, Polarity, if you want to watch Hamish Linklater devour practically every scene he's in, then yes, I would say this season is well worth watching.